Hello everyone, Red1 here, and this is going to be my review on Uncharted 4 Thief's Sin. I'm going to go right into it, and don't worry, the video in the background will be just multiplayer, so that nothing gets spoiled in the story for you. I'll start off with the pros because that's the majority of this list, to be honest. This is, without a doubt, the best storyline in the series. The story here is the highest quality, and they also took a lot of storytelling elements from The Last of Us, and while I originally feared that, it actually blends together perfectly and provides a very good story. It also is to say the villains in here are some of the best in the whole series. I won't give away too much, but Rafe Adler and Nadine Ross are some of the best villains in the whole series, by far. And there's also good character development for the new characters, including Sam, Drake's brother. And what started out as, okay, we have a new character that's just now being introduced for the last game, made me think he wasn't going to be that developed, but they did a pretty good job. He could have been more developed, but at the same time, this is the last game, and the focus here is more so on Drake than anyone else. And the ending, I'll just say it quickly without spoiling anything. The ending here is good. We could have gotten a little more put into the ending, but at the same time, what we got was really good, and I thought it was overall good end to the series. So now I'll go straight to the gameplay. The gameplay in here, it's Uncharted, but they've also done a lot of refinement to it. There's new mechanics such as the rope that we've seen and the grappling hook. At first I thought it was just going to be used in some spots as a gimmick, but it's actually very useful throughout the whole game. There's the driving, that's fun, which I was worried about because we've only had one other Uncharted game where we actually drove a vehicle, and it was in Drake's Fortune where you drove that boat. And let's just say that was one of the downsides of Drake's Fortune. That boat was not a good section, and there were like 2 sections, or actually 3 sections of that. It was a low point, in my opinion, of Drake's Fortune. It could have been better, or it could have just not been there at all. There are very large areas in this game. It's not open world by any means, but Naughty Dog used the term wide linear, and that's the best way to describe it. There's multiple paths to keep going forward, a lot to explore. I beat the game, and I know that I missed a lot of stuff. I didn't even get at least 50 treasures. I didn't even get all the journal entries, so I have a lot to go back and do for my second playthrough. The refined combat. Hand to hand in this game is simpler. It's the simplest in the whole series. Square simply attacks, triangles to break free. You can also team up with your AI opponents, with your AI teammates with you, such as, like, for example, Sam, and you can both save each other from combat situations. The AI might actually hold the enemy for you so you can hit them in the stomach and take them down, or shoot them in one shot and kill them. And it's very fun to use, and it's very fun when you team up with the AI around you. The shooting in here is fun, although I still do not like the decision they made to put the dot as the primary means of aiming. I preferred the aiming system in Uncharted 1 and 2, where the reticle was just a straight circle, and what you shot in there had a chance of getting hit. Because in here it uses the dot, and the dot is very accurate, but almost too accurate to the point where you miss shots even though your gun is pointed directly at them. It gets kind of annoying, but that's all I negatives about the shooting. The visuals, this is without a doubt the best looking game on console. I mean, so far I haven't seen a game that looks better on console. I mean, everything in here has been given an enormous amount of polish. It all looks very good, a very clean image quality, and some of the best effects I've seen in any game. The lush and highly detailed environment, for example, the jungle. The jungle is like the most stereotypical place to go in Uncharted, and in each game that's like a way some people could benchmark the improvements in visuals. And yeah, if you compare this to Uncharted 3, which was the best looking game on PS3 for Uncharted, it's definitely been taken to the next level, and it's running at a native 1080p, so it just adds to the overall image quality, and it looks amazing. Some parts of this game look like they could be in a movie. I took screenshots throughout my playthrough because of how amazing some of the environments looked. From like a high point or just a random point in the adventure, it just looked amazing to me. The motion capture and acting in here is perfect. The facial capture technology that Naughty Dog used here was put to great effect. Some parts where you think it's not possible for a game to look that well, for character animations to look that well. I mean, it just blends so naturally. There's not a point in this game where something looks unnatural. There might be a second where if you watch his steps going upstairs or something, you can tell it's gliding. It's just like a smooth path with like stairs textured over it. But then you have to look very, very close, and that's kind of like paying too much attention to it. So overall, very wonderful visuals. I can't wait to see what Naughty Dog does next on the PS4 or just more powerful hardware in the future. The multiplayer makes a return in this game, and while it's not as content-packed as Uncharted 2 and 3, it still has a lot of stuff to do in here that's going to be fun. It only has 4 modes right now, only 3 of which are different, because one is just a ranked team deathmatch. But the multiplayer made the decision to drop the resolution to 900p and target 60 frames per second. And even though they did this, the game still looks beautiful on multiplayer. I argue that the overall image quality looks a little crisper than the campaign, and that sounds weird to say, but you have to play it in person to see what I'm talking about. The campaign looks amazing, but it looks almost blurry compared to the multiplayer. It might be because of the frame rate is 60, but still, like even if you just stand still and admire the visuals, the multiplayer just has like a crisper look. It looks like everything is more refined. As in the single player, everything looks good from a distance, but when you get up close to something, you can see the flaws. Same with the multiplayer, but the 60 frames helps hide it better. And speaking of the frame rate, the 60 frames is great. It feels amazing. It can almost be distracting going back to the campaign after playing multiplayer. Luckily, the campaign has very responsive controls and a little bit too much motion blur, but enough to keep the game smooth, so the campaign is still playable and fun. So now I'm going to go into the cons of this game, and don't worry, there aren't a lot, just a few that need to be said because I haven't seen anyone else really saying them online. So the first flaw would be some frame rate drops. This game, on both single player and multiplayer, it drops. I mean, it's a console game, we can't expect a solid performance from anything on these consoles. But at the same time, some drops are more noticeable than others. A drop to like 28 during the part where something is crazy makes sense, but sometimes the game will just drop in certain areas to a very low frame rate. During the final level, this was very noticeable, and I'll get to that later. A little too much motion blur, as I just said. I feel they could have turned it down just a little bit. I like motion blur for Uncharted when it's only on the objects. The camera doesn't need motion blur. It's usually just the objects that prefer it. That's why I like the Nathan Drake collection for having the option to turn it off, or turn it on for only the camera or only the objects. That was a great addition. I wish that was in here because motion blur does help when the game is 30 frames, but too much of anything is a bad thing. The level design. The level design, when you're looking at it as like a drawing, looks amazing. But when you're playing the game on Crushing, which is what I played it on from the first playthrough, the level design can be very cheap because for 9/10 of them, you're put in the worst position possible and the enemies have the utmost advantage. That in combination with the enemies being very intelligent, flanking, and having really good accuracy, makes this game a little cheap in certain parts. I mean, there are certain parts where the level design is literally just trying to screw you in every possible way. And that you can tell, this is an example of they designed the visuals first and then made the gameplay after. Battlefield 4 did the same thing, whereas in Battlefield 3 they made the map design first and then added the visuals. In Battlefield 4 they did the exact opposite, and they did the same thing here in Uncharted 4 because the level design here looks great, but it's not beneficial for gameplay on the harder difficulties, which if you want the platinum you have to play this on Crushing and beat it. So yeah, good luck to you. This was the hardest game on Crushing in the series by far, no doubt about it. Hardest game in the Crushing on series, and the game is stingy on ammo on Crushing, so it reminded me a little bit more of the brutal options in the Uncharted collection. And the multiplayer is seriously lacking modes. I said this earlier, it only has 3 different modes. They said they're going to add co-op and they're going to add a new mode, so there'll be 5 eventually, but even still 5 modes is not enough in my opinion for a multiplayer game in 2016. Last of Us had the same problem. It only had 2 modes at launch, and then they added interrogations. So Last of Us as of now only has 3 modes. Now luckily you can still find a community on Last of Us. But with Uncharted 4, I don't know if that'll last as long because The Last of Us has a certain amount of skill to it that keeps players coming back. Uncharted 4 is fun, and fun will keep people there for a while, but without more modes and just more to do, I don't see it keeping the community as long as Uncharted 2 or definitely not The Last of Us. So, the prologue. This game has a prologue and an epilogue. I'm not going to say what happens in either of them. But the prologue for this game, in my opinion, was a little too slow. It pretty much just, well, I can't spoil it. It's very slow compared to the rest of the game, and then they do another thing similar to it later on within the game. like around the halfway point. In my opinion, that was the same problem. The pacing in those sections and the pacing leading up to those sections wasn't done correctly. It stuck out. It reminded me of the pacing in Uncharted 3, which that's not a good thing. And it's lacking some set pieces. I mean, what they showed off at E3 and then the extended demo of that in my opinion was the best set piece in the game, and they showed it off that early. So there's nothing really else in the game that's going to surprise you on that level of what we saw there, which is disappointing. I feel like they shouldn't have shown that if that was the case. But there's still a bunch of set pieces in the game. They're just implemented more into the gameplay and not so much looking at what's going on, which that's good. That makes it more fun to play it because you're living the set piece. So there's also a lack of imagination a little bit. I mean, I'm not gonna say why, but you'll see what I mean when we beat the game. Some people are saying they don't like the last third of this game. I feel the last third is not the strongest part, but I feel it's very solid and it's some of the best parts of the game. The last third, in my opinion, was fantastic. And yeah, like I said, it's lacking imagination. So Naughty Dog has once again delivered what is debatably the best and final Uncharted game as of right now, and they've given us another beautifully crafted experience that's the highest quality of games you can get right now, especially on console. And it has a few problems. They pop up, but it's not enough to taint the experience or even turn you off from the experience. In this day and age, I don't like playing through games twice if they're long, because I know I have a life and stuff to do. I can't wait to play through Uncharted 4 again, because I've been playing these games since 2010. I played Uncharted 2 first, went back and played Drake's Fortune. Played Uncharted 3, I played Golden Abyss, and now we have this, the final game in the series. And yeah, I can't wait to play this game again. What a wonderful series overall, and this is a great ending to it. I'm going to give Uncharted 4 Thief's Sin a 9.5 out of 10. I highly recommend this. This is yet again another must-own for PlayStation 4. So, let me know how you feel down below in the comment section about this game. Do you feel the same way? Do you think it's a perfect 10? All that down below in the comment section. And on that note, I'm out. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to that One Nation under PC and PlayStation. Peace.